Hello, Aries. Thank you so much for being here, you guys. All right, Aries, beautiful. They're beautiful cards, though I do think that a lot of you have been through some difficult situations where you've had to pick yourself up and dust yourself off here, so to speak. So, resurrection, reprise, recovery, and comeback, and then no place like home. Resurrection talks about needing to make swift changes here and transitions in your life. But it also talks about when you make this comeback, you're going to need to follow things and explore things that you've been denying yourself. And I like it because it kind of sets the tone for the year ahead. Basically saying that once you make this comeback, you're going to be able to do the things that you've been putting off or saying that you'll never be able to do. But before any of that happens with no place like home, you need to be in a place where you feel comfortable with who you are. So it does talk about authenticity, coming home to yourself, and feeling comfortable in your own skin. But I think that some of you just need to be in a place where you feel secure with your life, where you're at and who you are. Once that happens, that's where the recovery and the resurrection is coming in. But once you do this, you do have to start going after the things that you've been denying yourself, right? Changing your life, remaking yourself. And then from Moonology, you have the reminder here that you are good enough with the full moon in Virgo. Now it says that you need to find a balance between the cosmic and the mundane in your life, which for Aries, yeah, makes sense, right? Not everything is going to be extreme, There's going to be the daily, day in and day out kind of blah routine. But there needs to be a balance for you where some days are like high energy, other days are like I'm just going with the flow, right? Now it also says worrying too much will attract more things to worry about. And then it asks, have you been overly critical? An apology may be in order. But then it says stop second guessing yourself. So if you've been too critical, the apology may be you need to say you're sorry to yourself, not necessarily somebody else. Now, and then the last thing that it says is raise your karma by doing something good for someone else. I just think that you need to know that you are good enough. You are good enough to go after the things that you've been denying yourself. That you are good enough even though you may have come out of a difficult situation. All right, Aries, you can feel that Virgo kicking in, this perfection with the cards. Here is your overall. The Hangman. Okay. Now, yeah, it can show that there's a situation that is being put on hold. It could be that you're stalling, right? Or somebody else is holding up the show. But the Hangman is really about needing to see something from a different perspective. For some of you, you may not be ready to take action on something until you see it differently. But you're putting your life on hold here. We'll see. Now, in the past, the Nine of Swords talking about overthinking. Some of you may be looking back at the past and you may be overthinking things that have happened. There may be a lot of fear and anxiety about what is going to happen in your future, especially if you've come out of a difficult situation. For some of you, it could be that there may be some regrets over the action that was taken in the past. For some of you, you're just expecting the worst, right? But you're torturing yourself with these thoughts. It's like this wisdom can't break through to you, And maybe that's why we're needing to just kind of stop for a minute and gain, some enlightenment here with the Hangman. Okay. The High Priestess in the present moment. Now, with the Nine of Swords being the past, I mean, straight up, no, you're not trusting yourself or your intuition. Now, for some of you, it could be fear and anxiety about some information that may be coming out or things that you feel like you're not aware of. The High Priestess is going to be about that kind of hidden information. But the thing is the way that you're looking at it is almost like, I know something's up. I know something's going on, but you don't have the facts to support it with the High Priestess. But definitely not trusting what your intuition is telling you. But that may be where you kind of stop yourself and say, well, wait a minute, I can't act on this, because maybe it is just your thoughts running away with you. Okay, future conditions, the Queen of Wands. And See, now I kind of look at that as, for a lot of you, this could be because of a person that you're dealing with. But with her being in future conditions, I kind of look at this as you're needing to be comfortable with who you are. And again, right, no place like home. The Queen of Wands is going to be somebody who, is very confident, who is fun, has an excitement and a passion for life. For a lot of you, it may be fear over what is going on with work and what kind of a position you're going to be in. Because I always look at her as like the manager, right? But I think that for a lot of you, you realize that you're going to have to just chill out here because maybe you're not seeing things the right way, with the Hangman being the overall here. But with the High Priestess and looking at the Queen of Wands, I think that you start to trust yourself a little bit more, and trusting what your intuition is telling you. And it may be telling you that you need to, just hold on a second here. Maybe now is not the right time to take any direct action on something, Now, on the other hand, if you're putting your life on hold for another person, you're not helping yourself by doing this, or if you're letting other people hold up the show, to that I would say you need to move on, right? But I think that you're going to move into a place where I think that, first of all, you feel better about yourself, but I think that you trust yourself a little bit more. It's interesting, especially with no place like home. Okay, your best path to follow, the Ten of Wands. There is too much that is being built up on you, involving either another person or possibly a work situation. You may be taking on too much responsibility, but whatever burdens are being built up, you can't keep holding things off until something happens or, you get to a certain place in your life. This is really saying that you need to look at all the things that you're hanging on to, and maybe now is the time to release all that and free yourself from it. But the only way that you're going to be able to do that is if you start to see your situation a little bit differently. But I look at this and think, man, there's some shit that's being piled up on you right now. And then I look at the High Priestess and I think, maybe it's time for you to just kind of get everything off of your chest. If you want to feel better about yourself, it may be that there are some things that you need to confess. Stop second guessing yourself and just say what needs to be said. It may cause somebody else to look at things a little differently too with the Hangman. But I think that that's you needing to see your own situation from a different perspective. And stop letting things pile up on you and pile up on you. Okay. In your environment, the Eight of Cups. And I'm looking at it this way, and I'm looking at you going, I didn't want to have to deal with this. I didn't want to be put in this position, right? Some of you, there's the overthinking about it and not really wanting to move on, which can be the case, especially with the Hangman. But this could be you expecting the worst and then getting it, or at least moving into a place with the High Priestess where, you believe that the worst is going to happen here. And then with the Eight of Cups thinking, I can't keep doing this. Now, for some of you, it's you literally holding off needing to move on from something. And while you're doing this, things are just piling up and piling up with the Ten of Wands. But I look at that Nine of Swords and I think that if this is about a person, they've been putting you in a place where you've just been thinking about the worst, the absolute worst. And those are the thoughts that you can't keep feeding into anymore. But I think that there's a part of you that knows it's time now. It's time to stop investing in this, right? If you're not getting what you want out of it. But it's not that easy. It never is. The Hangman may be a detrimental thing here if you continue to put yourself in a place where, I just want to see the perspective where it gives me what I want, and you're not really seeing the truth, right? But I don't know. I still look at the Queen of Wands as you coming out in a better position once you let this go. And it could be that you need to start trusting yourself instead of overthinking things, right? But I don't know. That Eight of Cups being in your environment, looking at the Ten of Wands, no. All of this is starting to weigh on you. everything that you've put into something and what you're not getting out of it, or where you feel like you're not getting that fulfillment, right? Oh boy. All right. And I'm looking at it this way. The Page of Swords being your hopes and fears. This is one of those things where if there is fear and anxiety surrounding what information you don't know, no matter how many times you ask a question, you may not get the answer that's going to help you, get clarity, right? That's one of the things with the Page of Swords. And that may be why you're kind of like holding yourself up here with the Hangman. You're not ready yet. You're not ready to let go, but you need to, right? Otherwise, your life is going to be at a standstill where you're still kind of going back and forth with yourself about whether or not it's time to move on from this, whether or not you're going to get the emotional fulfillment that you want. But this is like, I have questions about what I don't know or what I don't see yet, right? But the thing is if your intuition is telling you that you're not going to get the answers that are going to help clear things up, then maybe you do need to move on. Because the Page of Swords is not going to give you the information that's going to help you. This is also fearing what you don't want to hear, But I'm still hopeful with this Queen of Wands, But yeah, this is something that I think that you knew was going to be happening or knew that was going to be coming up. And then there's your Five of Pentacles. Okay. This is really, I think, about you needing to stop putting yourself in a position where you can't move forward with your life. You need to start doing things to pick yourself back up. And then I go back to recovery, right? And think that you need to feel more secure. But I think that if you're dealing with a person here, they're not going to bring the security that you need. It's almost like they continuously leave you like in the dark, or they don't want you to be a part of what's going on with them, right? Because you're left empty-handed here. I don't necessarily feel like this has to do with work. I think that this may have to do with a relationship, honestly. But you're not moving forward, and that's the problem with the Hangman. And no matter how many times you ask, you're not going to get the information that's going to make you feel better about what's going on. You're still going to be put in a place where this person doesn't want you to know what's going on with them. So why do you keep giving them your time and your effort, right? Why do you keep investing in this? Why do you keep letting all of this stuff start to pile up on you? I've put so much into this. I don't see how there's another path, and I'm not in a position here where I can see the truth. You are really needing to take a time out here to gain a different perspective on where you think your life is headed, especially when it comes to being involved with someone in particular. Because I look at this and think you've put so much time and so much effort into this, and you've worked so hard. But with the Nine of Swords, right, if you're going to put in that type of effort and regret it, then what's the point? The High Priestess with the Eight of Cups, right? You really need to take a different path here. There is something else that you need to consider in terms of where you think your life is going with the Two of Wands here. But with the Two of Swords, it's like you can't do it. And I worry with the Queen of Wands here, if you don't feel like you're good enough, or if you're trying to pick yourself back up out of this, but, you're having a hard time making, the difficult choice to cut this out, right? And not keep doing this, and this is where I think that a lot of you are in this place of, I don't understand. I don't know what's going on. You're left to your own devices in terms of the way that you're thinking about a situation. There may be a lot of fear and anxiety, though, too, if it does come to work here about where you're going to be financially in the future, especially if you have to move on from a position where you may have been like in good standing with the Queen of Wands. But the thing is you need to have confidence in your ability to create something different. There is another opportunity, I'm telling you. With the Two of Wands, it's like you're only choosing to see one path. That's it. Especially with the Two of Swords following this. But yet, the longer that you hang on, and the longer that you prevent yourself from moving on here, and you continuously feed into what you're not getting, or feed into the situation and not getting anything out of it, my God, if I could talk right, the more that you're going to feel like you're being depleted, right? This may be for some of you, you just need to accept the rejection and let it go. You're better than that with the Queen of Wands. You are better than that. But this, I feel like, for those of you who are focused on a person that you've been putting everything into, they can't give you anything. They have nothing to give. They don't have anything to give themselves. But it's like you're restricting yourself to this one path that you see. And that's it. You don't want to have to make that difficult choice here to say, no, I can't do this anymore. Instead, you're ignoring the truth here with the Two of Swords. And that's just me being honest. You're going to have to get yourself out of this situation. You can't keep giving to something that's going to deplete you to the point where there's nothing left that you can possibly give. Oh, Aries. It's like, if I continue to put in the hard work, is it going to start to go the way that I want it to, right? But you didn't even consider the alternative here. And I don't want to see it. I don't want to see the alternative. And the alternative is that, this was not the path that you were supposed to go down or waste your time with. And again, right, recovery and coming back from this. And that, I feel like, is you having compassion for yourself and what you've been through. The beginning of being able to live from your heart and feeling more compassion for yourself, rather than putting yourself in a position where you're letting things build up and you're taking on way too much. There's too much baggage. There's too much weighing on you. And you're not getting any kind of fulfillment from this, right? It's the beginning of you having compassion for yourself. And like I said, being able to live from your heart. This one's frustrating, Aries. It's driving me nuts because I'm looking at this going, you're going to have to see it. You have to see it. You're going to have to see this. You can't keep putting your life on hold for this. And that may be something that you don't want to look at with the High Priestess, right? Like, I don't want to see that. I don't want to recognize it. And with the Page of Swords, it's not the kind of news you want to hear, right? But yeah, I think that there needs to be more compassion for, yourself and what you choose to put yourself through. But understanding that the only way to get to a new beginning is when you start living from a place where you are having your heart's desire fulfilled. Physical touch is important. For some of us, nothing is more important than a tender touch. This might include a pat on the back or giving a hug to someone who needs it. And then have faith, trust your faith in the situation. And compassion, right? And it may be that you may need to turn to a friend here and get a hug from a friend. Somebody that's going to tell you that everything's going to be okay. That's what I feel like with physical touch. Like, just needing somebody to, grab you and say, you're going to be okay. Everything's going to be fine. And that may help restore your faith in yourself, I think, more so than anything. But you need to trust here that the truth is not as bad as it appears to be.